everyone, welcome to Module 7. I cannot believe we're already in the final module of the course, went by so fast. So this final week we're going to be bringing together everything we learned about throughout the semester and talk about what's next. So we're going to talk about collective identity in the information age, social media revolutions, and interestingly kind of harking back to what we talked about in the first couple of weeks with muckrakers and journalists pushing for social change with those behind social media revolutions of today. So we're not going to have too much content or work to do this week other than your living history essays, but I do want you to look at the materials in the presentation, which I'll show you briefly. So this week, as I mentioned, we're going to explore how social media can help activists to create and gain traction for social movements, consider the narrative created by our online footprints, create your living history research paper, and reflect on your experience throughout the course. So you're going to view this introduction that you're watching, and then take a look at this thing link that I'll bring up in a second. So there are no required assignments based on that material, but I would like you to take a look at it because it's so important, especially for the time we're living in right now. And then your living history essay, which is kind of the major project of the course, is due Friday of this week by 11:59 p.m. like everything is. And also by 11:59 p.m. on Friday is the course reflection, which you guys are probably used to doing by now. Unfortunately, it's a university requirement. It's not something that I would make you do, but it actually is helpful to reflect on your experience in the course a little bit. So it's required for our humanities courses. And then the course evaluation, if you can complete that, I know it was sent out a few days ago. That's really helpful for our department to know what worked and what can change for the future. And then there's an optional extra credit discussion based on this week's materials. So this is the thing link presentation, which I'll bring up momentarily, but first I just wanted to reiterate the information about the living history essays. We've gone over these a few times already. The guidelines are in the syllabus, and then in the resources area there are additional guidelines that can help you. Hopefully you are on draft 2 or 3 by now, but if you're just starting it, please make sure to put a lot of time into this. And it's going to be 6 to 8 pages, double spaced, Times New Roman is fine. The font is your choice if you want to do something a little bit more creative. As long as I can read it, that's also fine. Feel free to incorporate pictures, but those don't count towards your word count. So just keep that in mind, or your page count, I should say. And just as you're writing the paper, just keep in mind the connection between media, your event, and memory, collective memory and the individual memory. So those are the 3 main facets of the paper. You can use personal pronouns, my grandfather, my father said this, I asked my father or my mother this question, or my neighbor. It's totally fine because it is an essay that is personal to you and the person that you're interviewing, so that's totally fine with me. And you don't have to follow this cookie cutter format here. You can incorporate quotes throughout the entire presentation from your sources or from your throughout the entire essay, I should say, from your sources or from your interview. Just be creative. This can be a fun assignment, hopefully, but this is helpful if you want to use this as a guide. And then, as I mentioned, the course reflection, all of the guidelines are right here. This is just 200 to 400 words talking about, the course description, the ELOs, learning objectives, and what you learned throughout the course. So don't spend too much time on this. It's not graded for quality, it's just graded for participation. And then we have our Module 7 discussion. So this coincides with the readings and viewings, the thing link presentation that I mentioned. So I'm going to open that up briefly here. And as I mentioned, we're talking about social media revolutions here. So, of course, the big one on everyone's mind right now and always is Black Lives Matter, which is, something that was founded in 2013 by these 3 individuals in the response to the death of Trayvon Martin and others after, Eric Garner and Michael Brown and other innocent young Black individuals who were just basically killed with no reasoning behind it. So it's an ideological and political intervention in a world where Black lives are systematically and intentionally targeted for demise. That's their mission statement. So I'm not going to go through all of this because I want you to take a look at it, but in this year alone, this has been reinvigorated in a totally new way, and it's on track to becoming the largest civil rights movement of all time. So compared to what we talked about in our Module 6 content, it's pretty amazing to see this happening now. And I think it has the potential to create some real change in the world we live in. So, I can't make you watch all of these videos. They're a little bit longer. So there's an interview here with the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement, Alicia Garza, Patrisse Cullors, and Opal Tometi. It's a TED Talk. It's really interesting if you have the time to take a look at it. Really well done. They are so intelligent, and just hearing them speak is so moving. So I would highly recommend that. There's also a documentary here that's from a few years ago. It features and was produced by Jesse Williams, who's from Grey's Anatomy, if you ever watched that. I know we have some fans. But he's actually featured in it, and it's a documentary called Stay Woke. It has some really interesting commentary and actual clips that you might find useful. And then this clip here talks about the internet in comparison to how it kind of moved along this movement in comparison to the civil rights movement of the 1960s that we learned about. So take a look at that information there. We also have, so there are 4 movements altogether that we're going to talk about here. The second one is Arab Spring. So you can take a look at these quick videos. They're altogether maybe 2 to 5 minutes here. But these are basically protests organized in social media, which you might remember hearing about, not sure, throughout the Middle East in 2010, 2011, and was actually kind of this new way of organizing for this part of the world, where they were able to actually spread information about protests, show demonstrations, capture videos of poor conditions and poor treatment by the government. So powerful, and it actually led to the resignation of their president after 30 years in power, which is pretty amazing. So there's some really interesting clips and a link here. And then, of course, the Me Too movement, which is huge. Me Too was actually started in the mid-2000s, like 2005-ish, by Tarana Burke, who you probably have seen before. She's shown in a couple of these videos here. And it resurged in 2017 by the actress Alyssa Milano. So she tweeted this tweet that's pictured on the side, and it inspired millions and millions of women and men to come forward to share stories of being sexually harassed or assaulted, or just simply, putting the Me Too hashtag to represent, support or, a story that they might not want to tell. So really interesting. There's this clip here. It's very short. It's just Tarana Burke talking about that power of even saying Me Too and that being enough. Like the whole sentence, I think she says. So she's amazing. I would recommend that clip. It's very short. And of course, this national reckoning led to the downfall of countless men in power, like Harvey Weinstein, Matt Lauer, Louis C.K., Kevin Spacey, a lot of household faces. And here you'll see the actual newscast where it was announced that Matt Lauer was fired from the NBC Today show. And it was an interesting moment because it was 2 female anchors, Savannah Guthrie and Hoda, who shared the news, and they were very emotional, and they were kind of like publicly grappling with this news. So again, a very memorable media moment, I think. And here at the end, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's a trailer for the show The Morning Show, which is on Apple TV. I loved it. I thought there's just something about the way that it was created that was very, I don't know, like it kept drawing you in week after week. But it has Steve Carell playing a very similar to Matt Lauer character. Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, all kind of like these anchors at a very Today Show-like, news broadcasting agency. And they basically grapple with him committing sexual assault on another employee. So it's very interesting, but it's clearly about this. So it shows how this has influenced the media to come out with stories like this. And then here's just a link of all of the people who have been accused. And it's a running list, I think last updated within the year. And there's a great quote about Me Too here. And then the last one I wanted to mention here is March for Our Lives, which you guys probably are very familiar with. I know that you maybe took part in a walkout, either in high school or college, or one of the marches. I know that I've had previous students who were involved or had friends who were involved. So this is obviously organized by the group of students who survived the shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in February 2018. And there's a large social media presence along with an organized march and continued events. So there are some links that you can look at here, their website, and their kind of like mission statement video. So it's interesting to kind of think about where we will go next with these social media movements and how they've even changed since they launched, within the past 5-6 years. So if you'd like to comment on that, I have an optional discussion here, thinking about the legacy of all the individuals that we've learned about throughout the course, like Orson Welles, the Muckrakers, JFK, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and even directors like Steven Spielberg in your World War II Vietnam presentations. What do you think that our legacy will be if we were to be talked about in some kind of media studies class in 20 to 30 years or longer? What will our generation's collective memory be with social media revolutions being involved and kind of like the Internet of Things today? So there's no length requirement for this post. I'd like just to hear what you're thinking and if you have anything to share. So I will end there. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. It has been such a pleasure to get to know all of you a little bit. I know this has been a weird semester due to COVID and everything else, but it's been a pleasure. And if we can ever be on campus again before you guys graduate, I'd love to say hello. So if you see me, say hello. All right. Well, I look forward to seeing your essays, and thank you for listening.